the issue was that there was the presumption that Black former NFL players started, if you will, right, with lower levels of neurocognitive functioning than white former NFL players.
Right.
Solely based on the their racial categorization, right? And so, and because that was factored into these clinical diagnostic tests or the scoring of those tests, that Black former players would have to demonstrate more impairment, right, in terms of neurocognitive functioning in order to be like categorized as having been impacted, right, and having these traumatic brain injuries that would entitle them to compensation. So yeah, to your point, right, it's like the super old school racism, right, like kind of quintessential racism. And I think, one of the things that we had kind of been aware of, but that this, I think, threw into greater relief for us, was that this kind of practices, right, in terms of how the medical community, right, and medical professionals treat race as an independent variable in thinking about people's health and in diagnostic tools and assessments and things of that nature, as this really problematic practice, right, and that it's rather ubiquitous, within the institution of medicine in this country, and that's really, I don't know how much people are necessarily aware of that, but I think that was why it was, when this story broke, the NFL basically said, yeah, this is what we're doing. They didn't deny it, right? They said, yes, this is what it is. It was part of the agreement that we settled, the initial class action lawsuit, that this would be part of how we would proceed with, evaluating claims and things of that nature, was using these kind of corrections, right, based on racial identities, and because that was seen as and accepted as standard medical practice, and that's a big problem, right? And I think that we should be clear that race has no biological basis, right? And so, as a historical, socially ascribed category, race is not capable of making anything happen. Race is not capable of explaining anything, right? And so that was one of the things that we wanted to really highlight, right? Was that often there's like, we take a shortcut, and I say we, just in general, the broadly writ large, right, is that we can take a shortcut in thinking about an outcome, right, and explaining that in terms of race, right? Like, well, race can't actually do anything, right? And so that was things that we wanted to challenge.
Yeah, I mean, like, racial prejudice can certainly do things, but that's that's like not a very helpful conflation that people tend to make. That oftentimes people, including progressives, leftists, will still will say that race explains something, by which they mean that racism explains it, which is sometimes true, although even there, as you point out in several points in the article, I mean, it often like really misses the mark, because I think anybody who knows anything about the NFL, they're probably going to be a lot less motivated by racial solidarity than they are by money. That they're not going to. It's not that they want to. That they want to pay more out to white players. It's they want to save every conceivable dollar, and given the racial demographics of the NFL, this is a really easy way to do that.
That's right, absolutely. And I think to circle back a bit to one of the points that you made, and just elaborate on it or give an example. Like, when people say something happened because of the color of someone's skin, right? Whatever the color of someone's skin may be, that can't cause anything to happen, right? Because my skin is, translucent white, or someone else's skin is is dark brown or whatever the case may be, right? That doesn't cause anything, right? Now, someone may treat someone in a particular way based on, racism, right? Or certain perception, and factor into that certainly. But that we should be cautious about, taking some of those even rhetorical shortcuts, right? In terms of how we discuss this stuff. But yeah, and then I think to your broader point, right? Like, I think there's a tendency, one of the things that we tried to do in the piece was there's a tendency to imbue race and racism with this kind of metaphysical, mystical quality, right? That it's this thing that operates outside of, this trans-historical thing that operates outside of, like quotidian life, right? It kind of like this pervasive spiritual type of thing. And so we wanted to fight against that, right? And really kind of ground these dynamics that we were seeing with the NFL in the broader history of race and racism, which is related to labor exploitation, right? And that race as these categories of populations, right, and how we think about different groups of people emerged out of a prerogative to exploit labor, right? In particular, in the American context, in the colonial context during the Revolutionary period, to kind of explain, right, these ideals of freedom and universal rights and the reality of chattel slavery, right?
Yeah, I mean, you quote a line I've always loved from Barbara and Karen Fields about the absurdity of talking about slavery as if its primary purpose were the production of white supremacy, not the production of rice, cotton, sugar, and tobacco. Right. Which is like, again, directly parallel to the NFL issue. They want, the goal is financial. This is a convenient way of getting it. But you have been watching a free public preview for a patron exclusive episode of Give Them an Argument. To get the rest of this episode, plus patron exclusive episodes every single Thursday, as well as patron exclusive post games after the regular show every Monday night, and a lot more, head over to patreon.com/Ben Burgis. As a friend of mine used to put it, why be foolish?